Imagine, if you will, a nuclear attack happening right now. The unthinkable has become reality. The peace of your ordinary day shattered by an explosion of unimaginable proportions. Picture the chaos, the confusion, the fear. It's a terrifying thought, isn't it? Now consider this. In the midst of this pandemonium, survival isn't just down to luck. It's about preparedness, foresight, and strategy. So in this world of uncertainty, I ask you this: how prepared are you to survive? Surviving a nuclear attack starts with the immediate actions you take. The first few moments are the most crucial, and the steps you take can significantly increase your chances of survival. The initial flash of a nuclear blast is brighter than anything you can imagine, and it can cause temporary or even permanent blindness. If you happen to see a sudden, unusually bright light, resist the natural instinct to look at it. Turn away immediately and shield your eyes. This small action could protect your sight, which is vital in the aftermath of a nuclear event. Your next priority is to find shelter as quickly as possible. A nuclear blast produces a shock wave that can cause widespread destruction. Even if you're far from the epicenter, the shock wave can shatter windows, sending dangerous shards of glass flying. If you're indoors, resist the urge to stand near a window to see what's happening. Instead, move away from windows and towards the center of the building, preferably in a basement or an interior room with no windows. If you're outside, look for the closest substantial structure and make your way towards it. Finding shelter is about more than just protection from the initial blast. It's also about shielding yourself from the radioactive fallout that follows. This fallout can be carried by the wind for many miles, and exposure can lead to radiation sickness. So even if you're in a car or other vehicle, don't try to outrun the fallout. Instead, find the nearest building and take shelter. Throughout all of this, it's important to stay as calm as possible. Panic can lead to poor decisions that put you at greater risk. Take deep breaths, focus on your immediate tasks, and move swiftly but carefully. Remember, your actions in the first few moments of a nuclear event are critical. The more efficiently you can find shelter and protect yourself from the initial blast and subsequent fallout, the better your chances of surviving. Time is of the essence, and immediate action could mean the difference between life and death. Once the immediate danger has passed, your next step is to seek shelter. You might be wondering, why is shelter so important? Well, let me tell you, in the aftermath of a nuclear explosion, the radiation fallout can be just as deadly as the initial blast. This fallout is a mix of harmful particles that can be carried by the wind and rain, contaminating large areas. Shelter is your first line of defense against this invisible killer. Now, let's talk about the best types of shelters. Your ideal option is a basement or underground area. They offer the most protection because the Earth naturally shields against radiation. But remember, the deeper you go, the better. If you're in a high-rise building, the middle floors are your best bet. Why? Because radiation particles settle downwards, and the middle floors are more protected than the top or bottom ones. But what if you're not near a basement or a high-rise building? Don't worry. You can still create an improvised shelter. Look for the densest materials around you. This could be concrete, bricks, or even heavy soil. The denser the material, the better it will shield you from radiation. So, pile them up around you, creating walls and a roof. It may not be perfect, but it's certainly more effective than being out in the open. In all cases, it's crucial to stay inside your shelter for at least 48 hours after the blast. This is when radiation levels are at their peak and most dangerous. After this period, you can venture out for short periods, but always return to your shelter. Remember, your shelter is not just a place to hide. It's a place to live and recuperate. So, make it as comfortable as you can. Stock up on food, water, and medical supplies. And don't forget about sanitation. You're going to need it. In a nuclear disaster, finding and maintaining a safe shelter can mean the difference between life and death. It's about protecting yourself and those you care about from the deadly radiation fallout. So make sure you're prepared. A safe and secure shelter is your best defense against radiation. After finding shelter, decontamination becomes a top priority. In the aftermath of a nuclear event, one of the most significant risks comes from radioactive materials that can latch onto your body. These materials are invisible and you can't feel them, but they're potentially deadly. So, how do you rid yourself of these silent and unseen threats? The answer lies in the process of decontamination. Here's what you need to know. First off, remove all clothing. These items are the first point of contact for radioactive materials, so it's essential to get rid of them as soon as possible. Don't worry about saving your favorite jeans or t-shirt. The risk of keeping these items far outweighs any sentimental value. Once you've removed your clothes, it's time to clean your body. This isn't your everyday shower or bath. You'll need to be thorough and systematic. Start from the top of your head and work your way down, paying particular attention to areas where radioactive materials could have accumulated, like your hair, under your nails, and in the creases of your skin. Use plenty of soap and water, but avoid scrubbing or scratching, as this could lead to radioactive materials entering your body through wounds. While washing, remember to keep your mouth and nose covered as much as possible. You want to avoid ingesting or inhaling any radioactive particles. After you've washed thoroughly, dry off with a clean towel and put on fresh clothes. If you can, it's also wise to eat and drink something. This can help your body replace contaminated cells with new ones, speeding up the decontamination process. It's important to remember that decontamination isn't a one-time thing. You'll need to repeat this process as often as necessary, especially if you have to leave your shelter for any reason. Decontamination isn't a guarantee of safety, but it's a vital step in reducing your exposure to harmful radiation. It's one of the most effective tools we have in our survival kit when faced with a nuclear event. Proper decontamination can greatly reduce your exposure to harmful radiation. Scene script. Survival in a post-nuclear scenario will depend heavily on your supplies. In the aftermath of a nuclear event, one of the most crucial aspects to your survival comes down to the supplies you've managed to gather. Let's delve into the key items you'll need to weather the storm. First, food and water are the fundamental building blocks of survival. Ideally, you should have a 2-week supply of non-perishable food items. Think canned goods, dried fruits, and energy bars. As for water, a person needs a minimum of 1 gallon per day. So, for a 2-week period, you're looking at 14 gallons per person. Remember, this is just for drinking. Additional water will be needed for hygiene. Next on the list, medical supplies. A well-stocked first aid kit is essential. It should contain bandages, antiseptic, pain relievers, and basic medication. If you or any of your family members require specific medication, ensure you have an adequate supply of these as well. Finally, communication is key. You'll want a battery or crank-powered radio. This will allow you to receive emergency broadcasts and keep up to date with the situation outside your shelter. Think about these supplies as your lifeline in a world where conveniences we take for granted are no longer available. They will help you endure the initial days and weeks of a post-nuclear reality. Being well-stocked could mean the difference between survival and succumbing to the harsh conditions. Surviving a nuclear attack may seem impossible, but with quick action and proper preparation, it is achievable. We've delved into this unthinkable scenario and explored essential steps to increase your chances of survival. First off, immediate actions are crucial. As soon as you're aware of the threat, find cover and stay as far away from windows as possible. Next, we discuss the importance of finding shelter. A basement or a central room in a building can serve as a good refuge. Then, we touched upon decontamination. If you're exposed, removing contaminated clothing and washing exposed skin can reduce radiation levels. Finally, we covered survival supplies. Having a stockpile of food, water, and medical supplies can significantly improve your chances. In conclusion, facing a nuclear attack is no small feat, but with preparedness and knowledge, survival is possible. Remember, knowledge is power, and in a nuclear scenario, it might just be your lifeline.